And then one day my father came home. He was incredibly drunk, and he wasn't alone. He brought a couple of his friends from the bar, and they were looking at me in a very uncomfortable way.
Your daughter is pretty cute. How old is she? Her? Oh, she's 16. That's old enough. How much to have some fun with her?
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Rather than get upset and kick them out, my father began negotiating with me. It was so disgusting that he would sell his own daughter out for sex with his friends. Seriously, how messed up in the head does a person need to be to do? Hey there, I have done something really bad. Although I'm sure once you hear my whole story, you may just agree that I did the right thing. Well, maybe not exactly agree with me, but you may just have some sympathy for me at least. My relationship with my parents has always been pretty rocky. Actually, it's been downright toxic if I'm being honest. My parents quite literally would tell me that they hated me and that they wished I had never been born at least once a week. To be honest, it's kind of amazing that I turned out as good as I have. There are some moments that stand out more than others though, like when I was 7.
Oh, look, it's the little runt that lives with us. What are you doing?
I'm watching cartoons. I always watch cartoons on Saturday mornings.
Yeah, well, scram. There's a movie I want to watch. Also, go clean up the kitchen.
But I can barely reach the counter. I'm only 7.
I don't care. Figure it out. I swear, having you was the worst thing your mother and I ever did. All you ever do is complain and waste our money.
But Dad, how am I supposed to clean the counters and dishes when I can't reach them?
I said to figure it out.
He then slapped me a few times. Hard enough that I almost lost consciousness, but I managed not to. Terrified, I ran to the kitchen and using a chair, I just barely managed to clean up the counters and wash the dishes. It wasn't easy since I was so small, but I did my best, and thankfully, I didn't get hit again. At least not on that day. Things never really got any better. Both my parents worked at the same factory and would get laid off from time to time. When they did, money would be tight, and that would usually be when my parents would be at their meanest. Hey, Mom and Dad, is there something to eat? I'm starving.
Starving? You already ate too much today as it is. You'll get fat if you keep eating like that.
I had 2 pieces of toast for breakfast, and then nothing else all day. Please, can I just have something with protein in it?
Such an ungrateful child. We're hungry too, but you don't see us complaining.
Well, maybe if you didn't spend so much money on liquor and cigarettes, then we would have more money for food.
What did you just say? Did you just accuse us of spending our hard-earned money incorrectly?
I could tell that he had been drinking and that even though I was starving, that if I kept asking that it would only get me beat up. It was a waste of time to even ask since they had already spent their money on alcohol and cigarettes. It used to make me so angry that they would waste so much money on things like that. It was as if they didn't even want to live since they were so focused on getting drunk all the time. There were even times when my father would throw empty beer bottles at me while calling me all sorts of nasty and mean names. A few years later, I got myself a part-time job, and I thought that that would put an end to all of their harassment. But sadly, it only whetted their appetite.
You're such a freeloading runt. I can't wait until you are 18 and we can legally kick you out of our house.
Here, Dad, take this.
What is this?
I got a part-time job. I figured that since money is tight right now, that if I worked and brought some money into the house, that it would help out so we can have enough money for food.
You ungrateful little brat. You've been holding out on us. You damn well better give me whatever money you make.
I, of course, didn't give them everything that I would make. I knew well enough that they wouldn't spend it on food or anything important. Instead, my father would use it to just buy more whiskey. And so I kept enough money from my paycheck so that I could afford to buy some meals for myself. I made sure to hide the food that I bought so that they wouldn't accuse me of stealing from them. Once I started bringing them money, my father stopped threatening to kick me out. I guess he enjoyed the little extra money that I gave to him every week. But even though they stopped complaining about me costing them money for food, or at least they complained a little less, that didn't stop my father from complaining about me wasting so much time with school. I could never understand why, but my father saw going to school as a complete waste of time.
Where are you heading?
I'm just off to school. Afterwards, I'll be at my part-time job.
You know, if you didn't go to school, you could work more hours at your job, and then you would have more money to help out the family. You're such a selfish bitch.
I always tried to ignore them when they said things like that, but it was getting harder to bite my tongue. I knew that one day I would have to leave because things would get out of hand, but I had no idea just how right I was. I packed a bag and stashed money away so that I could leave at a moment's notice just in case. And then one day my father came home. He was incredibly drunk, and he wasn't alone. He brought a couple of his friends from the bar, and they were looking at me in a very uncomfortable way.
Your daughter is pretty cute. How old is she? Her? Oh, she's 16. That's old enough. How much to have some fun with her?
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Rather than get upset and kick them out, my father began negotiating with them. It was so disgusting that he would sell his own daughter out for sex with his friends. Seriously, how messed up in the head does a person need to be to do something like that? That was the last straw. There was no way that I was going to have sex with those gross men. I grabbed my bag and money and snuck out while my father struck a deal with them. I didn't even take my phone with me for fear that they could use it to track me. I wasn't sure if they would help me, but I did know of a shelter that catered to women that had abusive husbands. Thankfully, they let me stay there a few nights while I figured out something a bit more permanent. Luckily, I made friends with one of the women at the shelter, and she agreed that I could move in with her so long as I helped out with the rent. And so my life was a bit harder for a bit, but honestly, I was so much happier. My new roommate was very reasonable about how much she expected me to pay, and really helped me to finish high school and apply to business school, where I excelled and eventually graduated. After that, I got a job as an accountant for a company and was able to make enough money that I ended up getting my own place. It was great, and things were finally coming together. But then, my parents decided to come for a visit. I got home from work one day, and a few minutes later, I heard a knock on my door. When I went to answer it, my parents were standing there, and they looked incredibly upset. The one thing that surprised me was that my father was wearing an eye patch. I was so confused that I wasn't ready to stop them as they pushed past me and made themselves at home in my house. "What are you doing? Who said you could just come into my house?"
Well, you're our daughter. Of course we have the right to come into your house. Why wouldn't we?
"Because we haven't spoken in years. The last time we talked, you tried to sell me to your drunken friends."
Yeah, thanks. They beat me up because you ran away, and I ended up being hurt so bad that I lost my eye. This eye patch is all your fault.
Well, good. It's just a shame that they didn't hurt you more. How could you possibly be so messed up to think that doing that to your own daughter was acceptable? Now get out of my home.
No, we won't. We lost our house, and the least you can do is let us stay here.
Yeah, you're doing well for yourself. It's the least you can do.
I'm not going to warn you again. Get out, or I'll make you leave.
Ha! What is a weak little runt going to do about it?
Angry, I walked past him and grabbed a frying pan from the kitchen, and then ran back to the living room and smacked him over the head with it when he was in a daze. I hit him a couple more times just to make sure that he was out of it before turning towards my mother. Now you two need to leave, and don't think for a second that I won't hit him again, or you either, Mom. Both of you are absolute trash people that deserve to live in the gutter. Terrified, my mother scooped up my father and led him out of my house. After that, I didn't see them again, but I heard through other people that they were indeed living on the streets. They had lost their house because they fell behind on their bills because they wasted so much money on booze and eventually drugs as well. Part of me thinks that they have probably died from an overdose or they picked a fight with the wrong person, but honestly, I don't care. It took a lot of effort for me to escape the tragic life that they were forcing me into, and there is no way that I was going to let them drag me down into the gutter with them. So, what do you think? Did I overreact, or do you think I should have maybe hit that asshole a few more times with the frying pan?